Your Denver Broncos are 5-5, and no one should care how it got done. Because let me start this post-game show off by saying this. If I told you at 1-5, Denver would win 4 in a row and be 500 at Thanksgiving, you wouldn't care how the offense looked against the Vikings. You wouldn't care about their red zone failures. You would just care that they found a way to win 4 games. So yes, this was not a pretty win all 4 quarters, but ultimately we have seen this offense and this defense step up in the fourth quarter of game after game after game amid this 4-game winning streak and make playoff winning caliber stops and scores. So enjoy this win, because going from 1-5 to 5-5, well, that does not happen every year. Now, here are the stats from the game. We'll throw them on screen. Russell Wilson, once again, it doesn't always look the prettiest. I think we can all agree. But when you go box score hunting, your average Joe will go 27 for 35, 259 yards, and 1 touchdown. What's to complain about? Well, for the first 3 quarters, they really weren't pushing the ball down the field all that well. But ultimately, Russ got it done when he needed to get it done. I mean, Russell Wilson showing us another fourth quarter comeback win, linking up with Courtland Sutton, who, by the way, in my eyes, is having the best year of his NFL career. 5 straight games with a touchdown, 8 touchdowns all on the season. But Denver's defense holding the Vikings at bay at the end of the game to keep themselves in front, but also another masterclass from this defense in terms of takeaways. You look at the Vikings offense against the Denver defense, 3 takeaways. And Jaquan McMillan, I mean, talk about a fan favorite out of nowhere. This is a guy that if you watch preseason ball was making good plays. But here he is going from 3rd on the depth chart for nickel corner to starting and being an undoubted starter on this team. Denver's defense, once again, making big stops when they needed to. Ultimately, the Vikings had I'll throw up the Vikings offense again. 385 yards, 210 passing yards. Josh Dobbs was elusive. He was slippery. He was tough to bring down. I think the Vikings offense outplayed the Broncos offense, but Denver cashing in on 5 trips for 5 field goals to start the game, essentially, and then a huge touchdown at the end of the game. Now, Denver's offense. It's not great. They're scoring. They're moving the ball down the field, right? 295 yards is not a bad day offensively. They're having a lot of trouble running the ball. 15 carries, 46 yards. Javonte Williams could not get going tonight. They have much better success just letting the pass rush get to Russ and flipping it to Samaje Perine because he runs for 10 or 12 yards every single time. But they protected the football, and they made plays when they had to the most at the end of the game, like that Courtland Sutton touchdown. But head-to-head, here's how the numbers fare. 3rd downs was dreadful for Denver. 2 for 12, could not get anything going in that department. But once again, usually I am sort of the realist, the guy who goes, hey, let's kind of pump the brakes a little bit on throwing a parade for the Broncos. But I'm not going to be that guy tonight. This team started off 1-5, and the offense made a game-winning drive, and the defense made a game-winning stop at the end. And they are back to 500, a spot not a single person outside of that locker room thought they could get to when they were 1-5 through the first third of the season. Now, before we get on to the rest of our post-game show today, support coming in from Prize Picks. Now, what is Prize Picks? Well, it's the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. We all know there can be some absolute stinkers of primetime matchups, basically anything with the Jets, the Raiders, or the Bears. But with Prize Picks, you can stay locked in on the game. Those were my selections for this past Sunday night game. I took the more on Russell Wilson's passing yards. I took the more on TJ Hawkinson, Courtland Sutton combining for half a touchdown. Unfortunately, I don't believe Javonte Williams hit the more on receiving yards. But Josh Dobbs, I took the less on. So that's how you play Prize Picks. You pick 2 to 6 player stat projections, more or less. And if you go 2 for 2, 3 for 3, 4 for 4, you can turn $10 into $250. So go to prizepicks.com/CLNS and use code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. The link for that is in the comments and description of today's video. Prize Picks, daily fantasy sports made easy. Russell Wilson. This is an interesting conversation because, again, the numbers look good. 259 yards, 1 touchdown. There are still some just bad rush plays at times, right? They have a 3-man rush and he's getting sacked. But ultimately, when you win games, no one's going to care that much, right? And this team's just getting better and better by the week. I mean, that's something I think fans lose sight of. It's not like what a team looks like in week 1 is what they're guaranteed to look like the rest of the 17 weeks of the season. No, teams are going to improve. Teams are going to get better more often than not, right? And this team is improving. Now, of course, we wish they not get out to such a dreadful start so that they would not decline themselves out of such a deep hole. But they got it done. So give credit to Russell Wilson. Javonte Williams, tough night. After a couple good straight games of rushing the football, ultimately, Denver's offensive line just continues to struggle with getting a 100-yard rusher. I mean, that's something that has escaped Denver every single game this season. And Javonte Williams, 11 carries for 37 yards. Courtland Sutton, in the meantime, I mean, I don't know what else to say other than the guy is just clutch. The guy has ice in his veins. I don't know if there's a better wide receiver in football this year in the fourth quarter. 4 grabs, 66 yards, 1 touchdown. I mean, maybe not the fourth quarter, but at least in the red zone. He is lethal when you get close to the end zone. I mean, we're wondering why this team is going 0 for 4 in the red zone to start the game off. Throw the ball to 14. Let him make a play up in the air. So what I want to know from you is, which Broncos player had the best game tonight? I think there are 3 candidates. Russell Wilson, Courtland Sutton, Jaquan McMillan. Justin Simmons, by the way, on his birthday, also had a really good game with some huge plays in that final series to keep TJ Hawkinson from advancing the football. But which player had the best game in your opinion? Josh Dobbs, it's a really cool story, but I'm happy he ran into Denver's defense. 20 for 32, 221 yards, a touchdown, a pick, and a fumble. Ultimately, Denver's defense got the better end of Josh Dobbs, making a big stop at the end of the game, and of course, coming up with that pass rush and that interception to set up a Broncos field goal and help them get themselves in striking distance to take the lead with a touchdown. Alexander Mattison, they ran the ball well. I mean, he was averaging 5-6 yards a pop. It looked like the Vikings could run it whenever they wanted to for good chunks of yardage every single time. But credit to DJ Jones and Josie Jewell for combining for that takeaway. And once again, the offense kind of squandering a really good opportunity. I mean, there was a time when Denver was trailing despite leading the turnover battle 3-0. That's really tough to do. But ultimately, this team made the plays they had to make at the end of the game to get the win. And you don't apologize for wins in the NFL. You learn from your shortcomings, but if you're going to learn from your mistakes, you might as well do it with a win in the column instead of a loss, right? Denver's got plenty to work on this week. They know what they're doing at practice all week long, and that is red zone, red zone, red zone. But if you're going to work on the red zone, you might as well do it at 5-5 instead of 4-6. Hawkinson, by the way, 4 grabs for 55 yards. Once again, Denver secondary. I mean, sure, they're human. They're going to let a couple of plays here and there. But look at the receiving leaders for Minnesota. 55 yards was the leading guy. And we're talking about 2 tight ends. Once again, Denver's DBs locked down. Sure, the Vikings missed Justin Jefferson, but give credit to Pat Surtain and the rest of the secondary. Meanwhile, Denver's leading receivers. Jerry Jeudy, by the way, what an all-time hezzy hey. A little fake pump action, pump fake action, get the defender to jump, even though he's past the line of scrimmage, and it would have been a second forward pass anyway. But Jeudy, Perine, Samaje Perine is quickly grabbing a favorite place in my heart on this team. Because all he does is just run for 10 or 12 yards in the fourth quarter on running back dump-offs. The defense knows it's coming, but the guy protects the ball, puts his head down, and picks up clutch first downs. If you enjoyed that win, make sure to subscribe. Because we're going to be breaking down the playoff path for the Denver Broncos. Sitting at 5-5, they are very much in this playoff race as they gear up for some big games, including a home matchup against the 7-3 Cleveland Browns this upcoming Sunday. So make sure to subscribe so you do not miss a thing.